here. And hello, brand innovators audience out there. We've had such great speakers so far. Excited to keep this going. Super excited to talk with Rachel. Just to reintroduce myself, Tiffany Pettit. I lead Director of Strategic Partnerships over at Influential. We are a social data and conversion company. We specialize in measuring the effectiveness of your influencer campaigns. And here with Rachel, she's had quite the career trajectory already, and she's here to talk to us more about Made by Gather. Do you want to give us an intro on your role at the company
Yeah,
and some of the things that you're touching right now?
yeah, sure. So many of the folks who are tuning in here probably do not know what Made by Gather is. We have actually been in business since 2003, and we started off by being a private label manufacturing partner for small kitchen appliance brands that were sold into retail. So J.C. Penney, Macy's were some of our first big accounts, and I joined the company a couple years ago, so still very new. And it was at a very fun, kind of interesting point of transition where everything that was happening in omni-channel retail, which has been going on for a long time, like that whole kind of sector had been very disrupted, had implications for our category. And then there was this millennial life stage and growing Gen Z life stage who were starting to really think about kitchenwares in a really interesting way. And we were, kind of connecting with those consumers by way of our channel partners, but not being very direct about how we were connecting with the end consumer. And part of what we embarked on a few years ago was really thinking about, okay, how are we positioned in the category? How are we positioned to end consumers? And then how are we connecting beyond product? And that really led to some, at the time, very cool ideas we had about non-traditional partnerships for, a small kitchen appliance and cookware portfolio of brands. And we've really, I mean, we just launched Beautiful with Drew Barrymore in Walmart, which hopefully everyone has seen. And if you haven't, shop on walmart.com now. It's going to be in stores on Monday. But has been a tremendous launch. And it was really like the first time we brought like affordable premium design to the masses. And you're going to see more and more of that coming from us. So.
It's quite good timing, I'll say, from a personal standpoint, because
Yeah.
I've been putting off getting an air fryer for the longest. One, because I live in an apartment, and two, because they're big and bulky. I'm not big on like anything that's like not an eyesore or anything that is an eyesore on my counters. So looking at everything and you introducing that just a couple of weeks ago, right? Or days almost.
Yeah, yeah. So
Exciting.
we did like a teaser launch for the Sage Green collection last month, and we released three more colors a couple weeks ago, and we're going into stores with this like beautiful black sesame and gold colorway on Monday.
I love that.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Was there like research involved? What was the creative process like in thinking about
Yeah.
some of the products that you're launching? Tell us about all of that.
Yeah, so we actually are so my boss who Shay Hong, he's the founder of Made by Gather. He actually started the company when he was just 25. Um, and he always had a passion for design and was, at the time looking at what Cuisinart and KitchenAid, Mr. Coffee, Black and Decker, what they were putting out, and there was natural kind of demand because those products made people's lives easier at that point, but they never looked really good on the countertop. And coffee and toasters, like that's one thing, but as slow cookers and like multi-cooking and more of these appliances started to become more popular, he really saw this opportunity and had the foresight to say like, all right, like, I grew up in a home where we all love to cook and gather around, a table, and that whole process of like creating and enjoying a meal together is like so wonderful, but like why do these products look so bad? And he launched actually Bella, which there are lots of similarities to Beautiful, like kind of looking back, and I don't have the full historical context because I'm somewhat newer to the company, but when he launched Bella, it was really like to bring contemporary trend colors, textures to the countertop, which he did in 2011. So that's always kind of been part of his ethos and like what he's passionate about. And he got connected to Drew through a mutual friend, and he was in LA, and I think that's where they initially met for lunch, and they talked for 3 hours. And I remember him coming back, and I said, "How'd it go? What was she like?" And he's like, "She has so many ideas, and we're totally aligned. Like her eye for design is incredible, and she knows retail, like with Flower Home and Flower Beauty, and so there was like this really natural kind of chemistry. And I think that like entrepreneurial through line across both of them, they both have kids, like family's very important to them, like similarities in value set was a really key connection point. So we started the like branding work with her about 18 months ago, and she was super involved. Like we had a 2 hour product development like kickoff meeting, and it ended up being an 8 hour, like she came with a ladle, like a, you know, toilet brush, mood boards, cookbooks. Like she was super clear, like here's my point of view, here's my vision, and really challenged us to figure out like how do we do this, and how do we do it at scale, how do we bring like a ghost panel, which is like a touch screen control panel, to our appliances, like how do we create something that's very premium and expensive, but do it for a Walmart customer. So it was really fun, and she continues to be very involved. She is the creative director, so kind of think of her as part of our org chart, and you know, she has equity in the brand as well. So it's been awesome.
Seems like a great match. Those are always the partnerships, at least I know, particularly from a consumer standpoint, but even working in this influencer ambassador, celebrity ambassador world, it's always so helpful if one, the person on the other end has a stake in the company, a true
Yeah.
like authenticity and willingness to work and be creative. And I mean, that's insane that it's been so successful thus far, at least in
Mm-hmm.
you guys having that synergy. What is the process? And okay, so now that everything's launched, what does that marketing sort of media mix look like for you guys, and what are you
Yeah.
prioritizing right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. And like it's you know, I don't have a background in media, and I've never managed large media budgets. I and what's interesting about our business model is like we're still B2B. So the way that the economics work for us is, you know, part of what we build into our cost structure is a customer program amount. And then, you know, if it's Walmart, if it's Target, like our customers will then deploy part of that like funding for various tactics, like some of which we do have transparency into, and some say, and like, you know, how much goes to Pinterest versus, you know, on-site sponsored ads versus off-site display. But a lot of that is, you know, depending on the type of relationship and the type of you know, exclusivity, like sometimes it tends to be a black box, which for marketers is really, really tough. Really tough. We want to control and see everything, and after all the money we spend on content, like we love to know what works and what doesn't. So for this, we are, so Walmart, Target, I think a lot of retailers have moved over the past few years to like a very an approach similar to like what Amazon has done with AMS, Amazon Marketing Services, where there is a self-service media buying platform for pay-per-click. And then in the case of like Walmart, Walmart Media Group, I think it's now called Walmart Connect. That's almost like a captive in-house agency that we work with to say, okay, here are our goals. Here's the marketing plan. Here's what earned media is going to hit and when, and then how do we architect a strategy that like makes sense for, you know, A, driving the business, and B, continuing to amplify top of funnel. So we do have as we're going into stores next week, end caps are setting, products are going to be in line. We have a fairly sizable media buy that is going to be executed by Walmart. across Pinterest, across display, and then sponsored ads. It's going to start firing next week. Um, we love to test and learn. So like let that live on its own. We've let earned media and the power of Drew and her fan base live on its own for the last 4 weeks. So we have some good data as far as how those things are going to translate to sales. And then what we'll do is in a couple of weeks, we'll ramp up our top of funnel paid social, really driving brand awareness, product education, and then driving purchase intent.
I love that. I mean, you guys have you've hit every bucket, at least as far as I know. As a consumer, I feel like for a lot of this market, it's exactly how I want to be targeted in every
Great.
sort of medium like that. Are you how I heard Pinterest in there and huge for home, no
Yeah.
brainer for anything that's cookware. Have you explored TikTok? Just curious, knowing the
Oh
food
my God, such a timely question. I was on a call this morning with someone. I'm trying to figure out how we can, there's a lot of good members on my team who are like immersed in TikTok, and I'm like a creepy TikTok mom and like just stalk all the crazy stuff that's happening, but like I don't like add any value. But anyway, we're seeing a lot of stuff happening just organically with our category on TikTok, and we are talking about piloting for one of our other brands, Crux, a Crux Creators program where we would, we look a lot to amazing, content platforms like Food 52. What they've done with the residency program is so genius. We're thinking about how can we pilot something like that for one of our brands that does have an audience that skews a bit younger.
Mhm.
So haven't quite figured that out, but the right conversations are happening right now for sure.
I mean, TikTok, talk about a black hole in general. And then in the food category, it's
Oh
just
my God.
so
Like
much
that's
potential.
where virality is happening. Yeah.
I like got served, I don't know if it was an official ad, but a TikTok note, if you've been on it for too long, it like scrolls up and it'll say, you've been on here for quite a bit. It's time to
Really?
go to bed. Yeah. I'm like, okay, you're right. They're like, I
That's so
know.
funny.
It's so fun and hilarious to see. Tell me
Yeah.
a little bit more about so how are you treating each brand? So I love the three brands that you guys have underneath. I feel like some of them definitely overlap as far as an audience, probably that you're seeing on the consumer side, but even looking in, I have like personas for each. And I feel like I even fit in a couple of different ones, probably more so on the Crux brand. Are you
Yeah.
treating social media experience, like content creation, the same across each? Are you like continuing to market each in the same capacity? How does that look like for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And like we're not this is both a good and bad thing, but like we're not super structured in the way that we think about like, Bella is like this type of, here's the demographic range, here are the attitudes and behaviors. Like we generally know what that looks like, but we have the added complication a little bit of like it, a lot of that's is a function of our distribution plan. So if we sell into like, a Target, or if we sell into like a Macy's, like that, and for Bella, which is our largest brand, the customers who are shopping those stores, like that's who that's who our customer is. Um, but we do, from kind of a creative perspective, we do make sure each brand has an identity, like even if it may overlap. Like for example, Bella, um, it looks and feels sometimes like beautiful, but beautiful is like the somewhat more affluent, like older sister, right? And then Bella is, she's out of college, she like just moved to New York, she's got a small apartment, and she wants some like cute kitchen flair on her countertop. Um, so we think about like who those people are, what their mindset is, what other brand affinities they have, and we try to differentiate on tone of voice, on art direction, on creators, so influencer partners, and even platforms. Like for Bella, Pinterest and at the time Vine was like those were huge channels for us when we launched. Now that's looking very much like Instagram and Facebook. And Facebook actually is, I would say, a very undertapped and like underutilized channel for our brand right now. Whereas Crux is like, it's Instagram, it's Reels, it's TikTok, like Clubhouse, which we're just starting to talk about, like, much more of a progressive and somewhat activist brand. So
That was my next question. It's so funny. I'll just point out that you mentioned you were talking about Bella, and I was like, if I could put these in categories, I'm like, Bella, she's the cute food connoisseur. Like she's the one that's in there, and yeah, we can play that one. Yeah, I did a little exercise with in a bit.
yeah.
I do want to hear more about Clubhouse. It's the thing right now, whether you're talking about things related to your brand and your brand category, or even in a wider, general capacity, thinking about like the state of the country and all of that.
Hmm.
How have you guys tapped into that space, and what does that process look like? Are you inviting other folks from your team internally, or other partners that you work with too?
Yeah, so some of our other partners are on there already. Some members of my team. We're kind of just like looking at what's happening right now, and a lot of what we're going to start to ramp up over the next, I would say, 2 quarters is like really thinking about. Uh, we have a really exciting piece of news that will be coming soon this fall, but it's another partnership or extension of an existing partnership, I should say, that's going to be really huge, and something that I personally think is really relevant for that launch, and also like the organic nature of how the partnership was formed between Shay um, and this partner, like that, those conversations, that product development process, like their vision and point of view on fashion and design and like honestly like social injustice, um, those topics I think are all, just hearing them talk and being in meetings, I'm like, this would be amazing Clubhouse content. It's just like, how do we, the execution of that and like planning is what we haven't like wrapped our head around, right? And I think everyone's kind of just waiting to see like, all right, should we be there? Does it make sense for the brand? Does it make sense for, an executive personality? Like, how does this fit into the mix?
And I think with that platform, it's like the short answer is yes, and then it's like
Yeah,
we'll figure it out. But the
we
answer is
will.
yes. We'll just figure it out. I'll definitely have to listen in. It's been like, I mean, every kind of conversation it seems like it is happening over there, and they're all. I feel like there's some sort of takeaway. That's at least been my experience
Hmm.
on the platform. What do you think, as far as, just to change it up a little bit, what do you think as far as innovation in this space? I don't know if, I mean, I imagine there's a lot of maybe technology conversations. I'm curious to know, what does innovation look like for you guys in this category?
In the kitchenware category, you mean, for like product innovation?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a really great question. And I was on a call yesterday with our head of engineering, who is, for an engineer, very, very he's like a marketer. Like he just thinks he has like such a pulse on the consumer and consumer trends, which is very rare, I think, to find. So he's wonderful. But we are implementing like now cross-functional kind of throw things at the wall and see what sticks meetings. So with a counterpart from our product development side, engineering, marketing, and really opening up kind of, I wouldn't say a barrier of communication, but like just making sure everyone feels like they have a voice and can contribute to various ideas, like under the precipice that like no idea is a bad idea, truly. Like anything, we can talk about anything. So we're always looking at competitor trends, what others are doing in the space, not just in kind of omni-channel retail, but in direct to consumer, like what's happening with smart home, what's happening with these like precision ovens, like June and others. And for us, it's like we have a pulse on all of that. So there's almost like this, large pipeline. How do we then fit that into our strategic initiatives so that we're not doing everything at once, even though we sometimes want to do that? We really have to make sure that, like, okay, if we have kind of a captive or already built in consumer base, how is that something they need right now? Like, or is that something they need like 2 to 3 years from now? And then what does that adoption maturity curve look like relative to our engineering timeline, which, as you probably know, is not, it's not a 6-month process. It takes a long time, especially for a new platform.
I was thinking about how you guys are thinking, how far about whether it's product innovation, the partnerships. It sounds like you are even into the next year. And just what we were doing last year, thinking maybe we said you guys are doing a couple of things for now when it comes to planning.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, but I think you were asking about like lead time.
Yeah,
We
planning
typically,
time.
yeah, typically we like for the brand with Drew, I mean, 18 months is kind of on the longer end. We're within the category, we're known for being very fast and agile. Like we have a very like flat management structure, which allows us to kind of like look at trends and act very quickly. And by quickly, I mean, 9 to 12 months is very possible for us. So hey.
Hi, sorry about that. I think Tiffany's just having a little bit of a connection issue, so I think she'll dial back in and
Is
do
she
so
in New York?
I'm sorry?
Is she in New York?
I don't know. I thought she was on the West Coast.
Oh, I was about to say, because in New York, I'm in Westchester, and it's about to like rain or start storming. So
Oh yeah,
anyway,
I don't know what it is. Sorry about that.
no worries.
I just wanted you all to know though, while we're talking, not that I'm spending all my time shopping, that I did do a lot of research and do have a recommendation for which model of Bella and Beautiful air fryer that Tiffany should buy. Really, really good reviews for the Bella. I think New York Magazine named it like one of their top 10 air fryers. So
Yes.
the products are really beautiful, and you have very comprehensive presence on Walmart.com for it, including recipes and content. So it's like a whole consumer experience that you've tied to your product base, which is phenomenal. I think Tiffany, are you there? Can you hear us? So everybody, of course, we're gonna have a little bit of technical difficulties, because what would a day in the life of the last 13 months be if we didn't? We'll see if Tiffany can queue up here. In the meantime, I'm just looking to see.
Yeah, in the meantime, please
if we
continue
do
shopping.
have any other questions.
Everyone, please continue shopping.
Look, if people need recommendations, I can tell you I did all the research, and there's actually really great reviews for the products. So I also don't have an air fryer for the same reasons.
Yeah, we have a not to make this like a whole sales pitch, but we do have a 3.7 quart Crux air fryer it is great for small spaces. We have one in like a turquoise, like a white, really cute.
I think my big problem with appliances is they are ugly. And so I look for them to be as small. And I think if you live in the city, they always have to be small.
Yeah.
But now we want them to actually look good in the small spaces that we have them in.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Oh, it looks like her signal is having some issues, but let's see here. I'm trying to see. Oh, there are a number of actual audience questions. So Rachel, if you don't mind, if we pivot and we do some kind of off the fly questions here. One of the questions is, what ways is your brand working to stand out in the eye of the consumer? I think you've kind of talked a little bit about that, and probably resonates in a number of ways. How do you keep kind of staying at the top of mind for consumers when it comes to appliances?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to like having a really strong and authentic brand strategy and like a messaging hierarchy in place that we stick to. And honestly, it's like a 1-page document that, like, whether or not it's a celebrity partnership or it's a sub brand or it's growth of an existing, core brand that we take into more accounts, it's like making sure we stay grounded. And in terms of relevancy, it's like when you're grounded and you have that framework, it makes it really easy to like stick to a point of view and a tone of voice that like is inherently natural, and create content around that, it may not resonate or appeal to everyone, but that's okay. That's sometimes the best outcome, right? So that's kind of the way we think about it.
And has this last year, I guess, how is this last year, which may have actually been really great for your business since most people are staying at home. Like, how do you think this last year is now going to impact you moving into the next couple of years, in terms of your strategy, where you find you're doubling down on investments? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, we actually had a strategic planning session yesterday with the full leadership team, and we're starting to think about, we're looking at what's happening in the market and in the category. A lot of the data that's out there is obviously based on what has happened, and no one could have predicted the implications of what COVID had on our business. And it's been a wild ride, and I think a lot of what we had in the pipeline before COVID hit was, really, really fortunate timing. It couldn't have been better. I think for us now, we are just trying to figure out how do we, we're growing so quickly, and we're adapting our organizational structure and our strategic plans to now accommodate what has happened from a macro perspective. And you can't predict the future, but we're always looking at kind of what's happening with the younger generations, and even how, Gen Z is growing up. They're moving out of apartments. They also may have, not spent as much time in college because of what happened during the pandemic. What does that mean for consumer behavior in cooking? There's so much uncertainty, but being able to just stay on top of those larger kind of life stage trends outside of our category, and then talking about those openly about what the implications we think will be, that is incredibly important. And honestly, we should be doing more of that, and we're just starting to have those conversations and tie it back to a very calculated strategic plan.
Yeah, I think the next 12 months after this last 12 months is going to help us better understand, is this staying? What parts of what took place is here to stay, and what parts now will go back to, the former reality or some sort of new reality, and being able to always know there's a general framework to being able to pick up some of those signals, and be able to constantly learn from them and while they're happening. Tiffany, you're back. Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me? The power of technology, or I guess lack of power, you guys, it's been a year. And I still have
it's our life. Yeah, nobody on this call, trust me, is thrown off by this in the least, unfortunately.
I'm glad that my kids, I have a 3-year-old at home right now and a 4.5-month-old, which I think, Tiffany, I'm a busy mom trying to stay alive, but I'm just thank God they haven't walked into my office. I'm locked in a sunroom.
Yeah, I already had the delivery people come and ring my bell 15 times. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Same page.
All right, great.
I don't know if you guys have covered off on questions yet. We have quite a bit from the audience that are coming in. Would love to jump into some of them.
Only a couple. So chances are you start at the bottom and work your way up.
Okay. Did we talk about communicating with your consumers? How you're thinking about your brand purpose?
No, I don't. Well, we talked about that a little bit.
I think it's a new one that just came in. Yes. So brand purpose and how that impacts our approach to marketing is such a great question. So brand purpose, we talk a lot about that with our Crux brand, which is kind of born and bred in New York City, and Shay created the brand, very, very much based around kind of the grit and the multicultural melting pot that is America, and New York is certainly the epitome of that, right? We about 1.5 years ago, we started to talk about how can we think about where we want to take these brands and do good by what we're selling. So some of the things that you're going to see more from us are around give backs and how we uplift communities, not just in New York City, but beyond. That's not something that's going to make sense for every one of our brands, but from a crux perspective, and you saw, or some of you hopefully have seen what we did with Ghetto Gastro, as we continue to expand that crux halo, like really making sure everything that we do ties back to a purpose that is rooted in something authentic to our brand and our brand partners. So, for Crux and Ghetto Gastro, as an example, it was around food insecurity and access in the New York City area, specifically the Bronx borough, where there is a food desert. And I would say we kind of dipped our toe in the water with various partnerships and give back initiatives tied to that launch. It was almost like a rotating collective of, Know Your Rights and Rethink and Project Eats. But as we grow that brand, making sure we're bringing our retail partners along with that strategy and that message, and thinking about a partnership approach that allows us to like do more good and do it at scale.
It's so authentic. I mean, it just goes back to, it sounds like you guys in general have really great leadership, really great team in place that cares for not just what's going on with it. Of course, there's going to be certain goals that you guys continue to try to fulfill, but then also just making sure you're listening to what's going on when you are targeting these consumers and reaching them in really unique ways. Love to hear that always. Can you talk a little bit about some challenges that have happened, whether it's, I mean, I'm sure you guys experienced a lot of growth last year, but challenges in general that you guys have dealt with internally?
Yeah, so I think like the uncertainty that I was mentioning earlier, like that's always a challenge. Like we don't have a crystal ball in front of us. And I think when COVID hit, um, everyone was scared, we were like, what does this even mean? Like, I think a lot of companies, and I hate to be like a total pessimist, which I'm not. A lot of companies, I think, even thought like, are we going to exist in a year? Like, can we do that? And we reached, I think like having that happen, like really, it's such a humbling experience, and it's been for all of us. So that was certainly a challenge. I think and I am not going to do this justice when I try to speak as if I know the implications of currency fluctuations and logistics and supply chain, but everything going on in China and our ability to really like tightly and in an organized fashion make sure that like our marketing activations and timing and media spend, all of that aligned with what was happening with product coming overseas, like containers getting lost, like delays at the port. That I think has been our biggest challenge. I think everyone, who's in retail at scale is going through this and has gone through this. So it's tough, but
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that. Actually, I know more often that has been coming to the forefront. I feel like a while ago, customer experience or just sort of like your relationship as a brand, whether it's like on the, again, supply chain fulfillment side, that experience has kind of been in the background. And I want to say more and more these days, brands are really making sure like that experience, if you need to return something, if you didn't get anything, that experience is going to tell us as consumers whether or not we'll continue to purchase and be a valued customer. So I love that you guys are thinking about that. As challenging as I'm sure it is, it's certainly important. Let's talk a little bit about, did you guys mention the social media campaign process?
no, we did not.
Your social media campaign process, and how do you identify influencers first and then create the messaging, or vice versa, create a message and then find influencers that would fit?
It's a little bit of both. For us, our approach is very much about the type of content that influencer creates more so than it is reach. Because our primary goal, like when we do think about influencer partners, is like authenticity and brand fit. We have worked with some, mid-tier to macro influencers where like there wasn't, like I was talking earlier about the Drew relationship, where there's like natural, like she's cooking, she has kids, she has a very strong point of view on design, like there's a natural innate passion for the category. And when you're talking about seeding influencers appliances with like a plug and a control panel and like, an air fry, like it is a very complicated product if it's not a coffee or a toaster. So it's really important for us to like balance, okay, who's gonna like get it, even if we do have a very tight creative brief, and align with our marketing goals, and then who's gonna create that content that ideally is not gonna take us 2, 3, 4 rounds of approval to like get it right where we can repurpose it.
Great,
So it's
great
a
answer.
delicate art, and I would say we haven't mastered it. We've like tested various scenarios. Some have worked, some have not, but in general, it's a push and pull.
Yeah, I 1000% agree with you. It's always dependent upon the process, the brand, the actual product, and ultimately goal too. Like, what is the success that's going to be measured at the end of this? How can you best approach it in that way? I do want to talk a little bit about the question is, what advice would you give brands looking to balance innovation and strategy moving into this next decade? It kind of leans, and you can consider brands within this category or brands as a whole, but I'm curious to know what advice you'd give to them looking to balance both innovation and strategy.
This is a tough question.
What should they be paying attention to?
I mean, I really think it's like just having a pulse on consumer trends, which I think the ways that like marketers have done that, I honestly think are like not super effective, because I think they're always kind of backward looking and like the ability to predict like what's happening before it becomes like a social movement, right? Or, a cultural conversation. Like those things happen rapidly and almost overnight. And like us as marketers, like what we saw with COVID, like we got to pivot. We have to be the first ones to pivot, and the brand has got to like, you know, have a airtime in that conversation, right? But without a strategy, like, and a framework, it makes it really hard to like act on that, and align every other facet of the business to that. So I don't really have a good answer other than like keep a pulse on the consumer. We all know that, but I guess it's like how that's done, whether or not that's surveys, whether or not that's like a, you know, hiring a 21, 22-year-old kid to just like live in TikTok and like feed insights to you. Like I mean, I think all of us are trying to figure that out, but that's
All
the advice I
important.
would give.
I think that's still a great answer. Everyone needs to hear it. I feel like whether you're specific to marketing or just thinking about, reaching customers in a variety of different ways across departments, I feel like listening to what's going on to the people that are going to purchase, I feel like it's important.
Yeah.
So thank you. Hello, April. Sorry again.
No, no worries. Don't worry. We found you an air fryer, Tiffany, that would work really well for what your challenges are while you were gone. So we were really productive, and I'll
Yeah,
send
so
you the
send
link
me
later.
your address.
Yes, cannot wait.
Oh, thanks so much, ladies. This conversation, I think, is actually so relevant now, more so than ever. This idea of celebrity branding, of influencer marketing. And while those things oftentimes feel so organic, they do actually take foresight, strategy, framework, and being able to really not just throw stuff out there, but actually then create a feedback loop so you're constantly learning and iterating. So it's just been great to hear what your approach has been there. So thank you both, and have a wonderful rest of the afternoon.
You too.
Yeah,
Thanks for
thank
having
you,
me.
Rachel. Talk soon.
Bye.